Here we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Taluka from Markers and Minions, and I'm live. I'm live with Jeremy Crowe. I feel like a news broadcaster. So
Hi there.
recently, in the last couple of weeks, I've brought Jeremy on to the Markers and Minions team for a new
Mhm.
collaboration around social and emotional learning. So a little bit of background, he's a fourth grade teacher, and this is what he's passionate about. He is very interested in teaching social skills and classroom management strategies and mindfulness, both in the students and for the teacher. And yeah, just has been really passionate about that and has done some work and research around that. So, in the last week or so, Jeremy published his first blog post just giving an introduction on what social and emotional learning is, or SEL. And hi, Jen. So, we'll link that for you all tonight. And we also have a newsletter that we're going to be sending out on Tuesdays. I can't really commit to every Tuesday, but we're going to be doing it on Tuesdays when we do it. And
Right.
so the first one will go out this Tuesday, and it will include like a recap of this video. I will link his first blog post and a couple of like resources and tips that we have to share tonight. So our starting question for you all is, let me pop it up on my screen. If you teach SEL, social and emotional learning, do you have a set time for it within your day, or do you integrate it into other areas of your day? For example, I know at my last school site, my third grade class, we had second step for 30 minutes on Tuesday afternoons. I actually think it was like every other Tuesday, and it wasn't us teaching it. We had one of our counselors come in, and he was only able to come in and do the lesson if there wasn't something else going on, which
hmm
there was usually always something
You're always
going on.
there.
Yeah, so we kind of had to find other ways to integrate it into our day to day lessons and our daily routine, just sprinkling it a little bit here, a little bit there. So that is my question for anybody who's watching. And Jeremy, what's your experience with that? How does it?
Yeah, I think mine's very similar to what you said. I did second step a few years ago at my last school, but the school counselor is the one that performed all of that. But like you said, they were never able to make it in because there would always be something popping up. But now I feel like I integrate it throughout my entire day. It's like part of my classroom management system. It's part of how I teach.
Mhm.
So it's kind of woven through everything for me. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So my background with it, the way that I stumbled upon it was actually in my very first year of teaching. I taught a class that had a lot of emotional trauma. The students had they experienced a lot of trauma in their day to day lives. And I'll always remember I had a student who was crying one morning, and he went to my principal actually and was like, I'm so scared because I didn't do my homework, which it makes me feel so guilty to even say this because back then, my first year teaching, I was like, we have to do homework.
Okay. Yeah.
I've evolved. But so he went crying to her saying, I'm so scared to go to class because I'm going to, upset my teacher because I didn't do my homework. And we found out that he hadn't done his homework because both of his parents were arrested the night.
Oh my gosh.
So he was kind of taken out of his home last night, still showed up to school the next morning. And then that's kind of the definitive moment for me when I was like, this is the most important thing that I can do for my students is focus
Yeah.
their social and their emotional well-being. And
Yeah.
that was just how it
That's
started for me.
No, I agree with you, Toluca. Like, I mean, I feel like we focus so much on academics, and that's essentially what drives all of our instruction. But like teaching kids how to like deal with all that trauma, especially at such a young age, is so important because you can give them all the academics, but if they don't have the social skills to be able to develop that and do something with it, it becomes pointless, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes we're the only people that are explicitly teaching them these skills,
Right.
so
Right.
we do have a responsibility.
hmm
It's just challenging, right, to get it in. Um,
Definitely challenging sometimes. Yeah.
Jen asks, what is Second Step, a curriculum company? Yeah, it's a prepackaged curriculum. It focuses on social development,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Essentially, that's what. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tiered for each grade level. It's carried throughout K through, I mean, in my case, K through 5. And
Hmm.
we focused a lot, their lessons focused a lot on, yeah, the social part of making
Yeah,
friends and how to behave on the playground with our friends and reading cues and things like that.
yeah. It did really focus on a lot of internal understanding of your emotions, more so how to socialize with people. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Yes, districts do purchase it. I don't think Jen is asking if teachers can purchase it. I don't think they can. I think it's a
I
district.
don't think
But
so. I think the district would have to. Yeah, I
there
think
is a
so.
free resource online. It's free to teachers, and the name is escaping me, but I will share it. It's in our Markers and Minions teacher community Facebook group. Someone had brought it up the other day, and I went on and created an account, and it looks really neat. I've never used it, but from what I can tell, it looks very well developed. So,
Yeah, same.
so
I was
please,
looking at that too. It was really good.
it's free because they got a grant for like hundreds of millions or something crazy like that. So
It's awesome though. That's great they did that.
yeah.
Very cool.
Hi, Gail. Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to start my interview, my formal interview, and I'm going to make this question disappear. Give me a sec. There we go. Okay. And by the way, we're twins tonight.
Right?
We
Not planned.
didn't promise. Okay, what is social emotional learning? How does it help kids?
Yeah, so social emotional learning, for me at least, looks at essentially what it means to be human and have those complex emotions, and how to deal with them in a healthy way so that you can also communicate to others how you're feeling and also understand yourself more. Um, yeah, it's essentially just being able to be a very kind individual that understands themselves on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what their role and what their place is in their different relationships, their relationship with their peers, with their friends, with adults. It's a explicit teaching around that as well, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also like focuses on identifying the multitude of emotions that we have
Mm-hmm.
and being able to acknowledge and reflect when you're feeling angry or upset to self-regulate. So it really pushes kids to be self-accountable for those things, just like they would be in the real world or if they're at home going through that trauma. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. Okay, and who does it benefit? Who does this kind of teach?
what's the benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. I feel like it benefits everybody. So it definitely benefits the teacher for sure and the student. The student, it's benefiting because they're getting that practice within the classroom. They actually have a role model to look up to see how to communicate with people and process their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, some of these kids don't have parents at home to show them that, you know, or good role models to do that.
Or
So it benefits them for understanding their emotions more, makes them healthy in that way. As for the teachers, it actually really changes the classroom community. So, like, whenever you start doing SEL with your students, every, the environment becomes more positive. Even the interactions you have with each other does because you're more empathetic. You start understanding each other more on a different level.
see the kids in it.
Um, yeah, exactly. And then the students also begin to learning how to self-regulate on their own. And yeah, just like it's really amazing thing whenever you see these kids actually handle these big people problems
Mm-hmm.
in such, healthy ways.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. So then the teacher needs to be a good role model too. So the teacher might have some learning to do.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
for growth.
And that's coming up on a blog post soon, some tips for teachers to do.
Yeah.
So that'll be really great too.
Okay. And then so how can I incorporate it into my classroom? So the question is most of us, a lot of us know what it is. Once we learn about it, we're like, yeah, sounds great, let's do it. But then it's like, okay, what does that actually look like? Like Monday morning, what does that look like in my classroom? What are ways that we can incorporate it? So some of the things that I did, since I did have to integrate it into just my daily schedule, were number one, I would use picture books. So I'd bring in picture books that focused around a specific character trait or a specific like internal conflict or something that showed a conflict within a relationship. And I use it as a mentor text. And so we'd read that. Also, Wonder, I read that every year to my third graders, even though the fifth grade teachers don't like that I read it to them. I think it's so important to bring in that sort of learning and through just read alouds. And it doesn't need to be a giant lesson around it. It can really just be like 10 minutes after the kids come in from lunch when it's time to calm down or whatever. Pull out that picture book and say, you know, I've noticed that we're struggling with this, or I've noticed a couple of whatever it is. I think this book will really help us learn some strategies for dealing with this conflict. And who doesn't
Yeah.
a read aloud time? So that's a
Right.
really easy way to focus on social and emotional learning. Also, class meetings. So I never did the morning meeting. I know that's very popular and very doable for teachers, where you start your day having a class discussion in a meeting. I liked to do my meetings in the afternoons. Oops, hold on, lost you. There you are. I like to do my meetings in the afternoons after we're back in from lunch. Jeremy, are you clicking out of the screen? Are you clicking anything on your?
No, it froze for a second. No, I didn't touch anything, I promise.
Okay. As long, can you all see us? I can kind of see comments
It
off
worked?
to the side. Give us a comment or something so I know that we're not just talking to each other. So I'd have meetings in the afternoons where we talk about just feelings, like how someone's feeling about their interaction on the playground that day, or how they're feeling about something we're learning about, or even just academic anxiety, whatever it is just an open 5 minutes where we can just talk as almost like friends or just like a community, where we're not trying to, I don't come in with a lesson plan or a specific objective. It's just like, let me hear what you have to say. Okay. Yes. Okay. You guys can see us. Good. So that's one way that I like to, just for myself too, to kind of slow down and connect with the kids. And then we periodically will check in and reflect on our goals, because we do a lot of goal setting periodically, like maybe every 2 to 3 months we'll revisit goals, and I teach the kids how to set like personal goals that are more short term, long term, and I teach them to reflect on how they are, how their relationships are and how their friendships are, and set goals around those. And so I do bring in that reflection component. I could probably do that better, but that's another way to just highlight those skills. I also started about 3 years ago sending home a social emotional challenge once a week. So I over time kind of started moving away from homework, but I find that at least where I teach, like parents still want something sent home. So I would send home, cursive practice, whatever, easy stuff, and then a challenge. And those challenges were anything that they had to do with like working together with your family members or going outside. It was kind of like and also an effort to get them off of their video games when they go home. So
Yeah.
so it's things like that, like they had to cook with a family member, or they had to write a grocery list, or so just those sorts of skills, those daily regular skills that involve thinking outside of themselves. I would do.
Hmm.
I would kind of bring that into, and that was easy because I could just send it home.
Yeah.
And then yeah. Oh, and then so recently I just created a resource called Big Feelings for Big Kids, and I created it in an effort to make it easier to integrate within your reading block. So those of you that know me already, you know that I love literacy and reading, ELA, comprehension, all that. So I wrote social emotional passages, if you will. They're tiny passages that are all themed. So there's like complex themes: death, homelessness, socioeconomic status, academic anxiety, focus in the classroom. And I wrote these little scenarios that have a problem and no solution. And then the questions that go with it require students to pull out evidence from the text, to analyze the feelings, analyze the body language of the characters. And then there's a reflection component. This is where I'm also bringing in that reflection, where kids have to think. So like problem solving, how would you solve this problem if you were there in that scenario? And then feel. So if you were a student in this class and you witnessed that, what's something that you would say? So teaching them to empathize. So that is, again, my newest resource. I just posted it, so I'll be sending out information or posting about that in the coming week with pictures and whatnot. So that's it. Those are the ways that that I would implement SEL. I also came up with a list. Jeremy and I kind of just through talking this week came up with a quick list. This will go out in the Tuesday newsletter also. So it's just ideas that you can easily use like Monday morning. And what do you do? Your turn.
Well, so I do morning meeting to start each day, but I start the entire SEL focus before they even enter the room. So each morning we learn how to greet each other, like saying good morning with a smile, because smiles make people feel better, even if they're feeling down.
Mm-hmm.
And a handshake, high five, or hug, whichever one they choose, as they're entering the room. And then for morning meeting, we always do, I'm sure a lot of people already do morning meeting, but if not, it essentially goes a greeting, and then you share something about yourself, and then there's an activity, like a team building activity, and then some sort of message that you give the kids. So during the good morning part, they usually partner up with someone they normally don't talk to. That's the goal, is to try to like get through everyone and eventually have a different partner every day. And then from that, they share not just like a basic question, like sometimes it's a fun question here and there, but usually it's more of like an in-depth, like emotional resilience question. Like think of a time whenever you felt really proud of yourself, and what did that feel like, and what caused that, or what kind of person do you hope the world views you as, and what are the actions that you do to demonstrate that?
Nice.
So like a lot about identity is put into morning meeting also. And then as far as the message that I give them each day, we also talk about classroom goals as well. So like SEL goals specifically, like being more kind or practicing self-control that day. Usually things that I've noticed that the class needs a little extra practice with.
Hey guys, let's work on this.
Yeah, exactly. But it actually really does change the day for me, and it does a really great job with it. And like the kids being able to socialize too is like great for them to have that practice, In addition, I also do read alouds as well with chapter books. I was going to bring up Wonder because I love that book. It's really good. And my kids love read alouds, as every class, So I always read the book usually after lunch as well. And then we talk about the characters and what they're going through. And I always choose like character building books specifically so that I know that they'll have to learn a lesson through that and they can take it away with them, We've also, a few years ago, I started integrating yoga into the classroom along with deep breathing exercises with the kids. That was whenever I was teaching first grade.
Yeah.
First graders loved it. They were like really all about it. Fourth grade is what I teach now. They're starting to get to that age where they realize like, oh, people might look at me a little differently. So they like don't really enjoy it that much. So that technique didn't work with them. But the deep breathing technique of just calming their bodies whenever they're anxious really worked with the older kids.
Yeah.
So even just laying on the floor and doing belly breathing right after lunch, if it's a hectic afternoon usually, will calm down their emotions and everything else.
Yeah.
Another thing I do with SEL is thinking about the classroom environment. So I feel like that goes, a lot of people don't think about that very often in those little details, but it makes a huge difference. So I always have certain type of music I play that I know will create a certain feeling or vibe within the classroom. So it's usually more of like piano, relaxed music in the morning as they enter. So to really like set the day with that tone. And just like continue that throughout the day. And also having a calm corner in the classroom is really helpful. Some people call it peace corner, but essentially a place where the child or anyone could remove themselves for a little bit if they need, to self-regulate and use these different strategies that's back there to learn from. So helps too.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought up classroom environment because that's something that you don't really see brought up a lot. And I feel personally that I like to model my classroom after how I would want my home, how I want my home to feel. Since I'm there all day, the kids are there all day. So I try to kind of minimize what's on the walls so that it's a little bit more calming. I do like colors. I'll do that. But I try to not get too insane with distractions. I also like to keep the blinds open so that we have natural light. Otherwise, we have the overhead fluorescent light. And honestly, I just turn that off. And
Me too.
the day, it's kind of funny because when people come into my classroom in the afternoons, they're like, "It's so dark in here. What are you doing?" But since we've been using natural light all day, it's kind of just a natural progression in the afternoons because the sun sets on the other side, so it starts to go over to the other side of the building. It does get darker in my classroom, but it's so calm, and it just feels more safe, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
It's a calming
No,
environment, and it feels more like a home,
it really does. Yeah.
a doctor's office or something.
Right. Especially if you're thinking about how a lot of these kids, as we said, come from traumatic situations. And you have kids in your classroom that go through that too. And having that calming environment is really like soothing for them, you know? Yeah, I always say that the environment's the third teacher. So like the kids learn from the environment around them. So it's always really important to take that into consideration too.
I love that quote. I could like see that like scrolling through Instagram. The environment is the third teacher. It's some profound post.
That's coming.
Watch is going to be on your Instagram next week. Okay, Jen says, "Are you familiar with PBIS? I like SEL. I feel like SEL and PBIS are like siblings in the family of classroom culture and school culture." Yeah, so PBIS is a positive for anybody that doesn't already use this. It's a positive incentive or management system that extends beyond the classroom and it's school-wide. It really focuses on, like positive and having positive reinforcement and having a set of standards that everyone is held to. So, and I know that you integrate your classroom management with your social emotional teaching practice.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a perfect segue for you to talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say that. I would say PBIS is very similar to SEL in the work I do. It's kind of ingrained in that because I flow it through the behavior management system. Same thing, expectations that everyone's held to, because high expectations are always necessary, right? And then the kids usually reach them if you keep them. It's woven through the management system and also the way we redirect or respond to students is part of the SEL and the PBIS system because it's always positive redirection, never negative. Because that's also part of learning how to socialize healthily, right? Is to be able to talk nicely to others even when you're frustrated. So teachers need to model that as well to the kids or they won't get it.
Yeah.
So I think they're both very similar. They're both very intertwined, yeah. But with my management system, essentially, I try to create it as the year goes on that's more student-centered. So they're the ones that pretty much run it. Like the kids know whenever they need to go to the calm corner because they're having trouble controlling their body. They'll just get up and go do that. They also know that every day is a new day. Every hour is a new hour. I was like, so we always like start fresh and positive with each other. But also it's important to like talk to them if it's a repeated action where it's like, okay,
and let them know that
I'm glad that you're self-regulating, but that's not really self-regulating if you're still doing it all day.
Right. Let them know that, hey, there's still consequences and sometimes there's
right.
positive.
Yeah.
I know that's the frustration that I see a lot around it, I don't want to say PBIS specifically, but like all of these school-wide positive incentive programs is that it's hard to, as teachers, it's hard to find a balance with teaching about consequence as well and in getting support from everybody else at the school in those decisions around management. So I do see that brought up quite a bit, and I don't have an answer for that. I was just talking. Sorry.
No, Yeah, I agree.
One of the things.
Um, Something else to touch on with management practice too is thinking about reflecting whenever the behaviors happen too. So I think that's a huge aspect of SEL is personal reflection on your actions and taking ownership of those. Acknowledging that you're in control of your day and you're in control of what you do.
Mhm.
No one else is, and reflecting on that and how you could have made it better at the end is really important to really solidify that whole process.
Did you set
And I always
a
tell
day
them,
to do that?
what's
You
that?
set a time each day for the kids to do that?
Yeah, so it depends throughout the day. So if we really accomplish something amazing throughout the day and they worked really hard at doing that, and I can tell they feel really proud of it, I have them take the time to journal and like think about their accomplishment and talk about how it makes them feel, and then relate it to like when they experienced that in the past too,
Uh,
so that they'll have that in there. And on the opposite, if they're having like a difficult day here and there, then the class reflects on that too, right? We always say that reflection is not bad or good; it's just a self-awareness technique. So when you're writing it down, it's not punishment, and it's not me being negative in that way.
Yeah.
It's part of the process, right? It's part of analyzing what you've done to learn from it, so you can move forward.
Grow through what you go through.
Yep, yep, exactly. I love that.
Okay, Jen says, do you have a list of these homework challenges, also of your character read alouds? Yes. Okay, so the homework challenges is something that I packaged and it's on my store. It's been on there for years, so you may have seen it already. I can link that afterwards. And the character read alouds, I do have a section on my website that I will link. It's all my blog posts that have several different titles. So I'll have a post that's mentor text for teaching perseverance, mentor text for teaching how to have a growth mindset, things like that. So I can link that and share those titles with you, Jen. All right. Let me see where we are. You talked about journaling. That's awesome. Okay. Cool. So, if anyone has any other questions, I think we've covered the gist of it, Jeremy. If anyone has any other questions, we will be around to reply to the comments. There's also going to be our SEL Tuesday newsletter, and I'm going to put that link up on the screen. So this is what you visit, bit.ly/capital SEL, capital Tuesday, capital newsletter. It's case sensitive. So that'll be a screen will pop up for you to enter your email address, and then it'll automatically add you to our list of subscribers for the SEL Tuesday newsletter. So we'll get everything that we've talked about, including the links and everything, over to you in that. And yeah, I guess that's it, Jeremy, right?
Yeah, I think so. Look out for Tuesday though, because I am going to be putting out some tips to make the morning more positive, so you can get off on the right foot. So I'm excited to share those.
Yeah, he'll also be sharing just quick, like Simone does on Monday. She'll just share a quick math idea or a picture or a tip. So Tuesday is Jeremy's day to kind of run our Facebook group. So yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And
Thank you,
we'll
guys.
talk to you all soon.
Awesome.
Bye.